Hello, everybody. We are Team How Do We SCM. This is for class MBA 6205, Supply Chain Management, and we're concentrating on Amazon Supply Chain Management, and we're concentrating a little bit on the drone technology delivery system. So just taking a brief history of Amazon. Founded in 1994 by founder Jeff Bezos, headquartered in Seattle, Washington in 1997. So the unique thing about Amazon is to reduce variable costs. Amazon starts to circumvent traditional distribution routes. And in 1995, Amazon launches a website that only technically sold books. In the first month of its launch, Amazon had already sold books to people in 50 states, 45 different countries. Book distributors require retailers to order 10 books at a time. Amazon didn't need that much inventory yet. And ultimately, they had that was a lot of money too, I think, is a more important point of that. And how they, from the very beginning, started to deal distinctly with supply chain and inventory management. Distributors ultimately, would try and require them to order more. They found ways to circumvent that process, and finally got to where they could just get the one book needed to reduce that supply chain, which ultimately at the end reduced costs to their customers. The company for a long time was dramatically understaffed. Every employee had to take a graveyard shift in fulfillment centers to meet orders because they had too much demand from their e-commerce segment, which was fairly unheard of at this point. They had a shortage of labor, have to work on holidays. It was an interesting time, in the growing pains in the late 90s and early 2000s. Facilities would get shut down for hours because of system outages, and piles of product would go ignored. Teams had strict goals at this point with equations to measure their success. And those, they tried to fit functions, and tracking those goals was how Jeff Bezos started to manage the teams. We've come a long ways since then with Amazon. So Amazon Prime is there, mechanical Amazon, fresh Amazon, Amazon and Kindle merger. There's the Zappos acquirement. You have Whole Foods being acquired by Amazon. And then you have Amazon Prime and Prime Air as we move into 2016, 2017, which really start to get into where we want to talk a little bit about their supply chain. We want to talk some about the traditional supply chain of Amazon because it's pretty unique. Then we want to look at what they're doing with airline and drones. So if you look at it, Amazon almost has a supplementary supply chain to the traditional supply chains that exist. And that's pretty unique because they've done it at a marginally less cost than what the traditional supply chain would cost. And really they have a supply chain working in tangent. So looking at Amazon's supply chain and equaling success, we make a lot of fun in class about Walmart and Amazon ultimately. But meanwhile, it's amazing to look at Sam Walton's success matrix, which he viewed as a productivity loop, and look at Amazon's flywheel of growth. There's some amazing similarities there. So Walton looked at market leadership, superior financial returns, reinvestment at a higher rate than competitors, new product service cost improvements, greater value to customers, higher market share, and that meant we started all over, that they have market leadership, superior financial returns, and those kept building on each other, and you go round the circle. Meanwhile, we can argue that maybe Walmart has gotten away from some of that, but meanwhile, Walmart was based upon those principles, and to some degree still is. Meanwhile, Amazon has supplanted that a little bit and said, lower prices and a better customer experience can lead to more traffic. More traffic leads to more sellers. This is where Amazon gets unique in their supply chain, because they're not necessarily supplying, they're just the logistics manager almost in a lot of different things. And so then the seller makes a selection. And because of that, you start the circle again with a lower price and cost structure. And so lower cost structure because you're not inventorying it, because you didn't make it, because a lot of things enable you to sell it for a lower price and still make the same profit. Pretty unique part of that. And then you have a dual part of the flywheel with selection to customer experience to traffic to sellers, and then that enables that lower cost, which catches on at the top. So I think one of the cool things, if we look at it, that Amazon did with supply chain is they turned some of these rules on the top on their head. So to win a supply chain, some days you have to break the rules, I think, is maybe where Jeff Bezos would go. Supply chain and logistics, it's not strategic. There's no strategic advantage of having it, which I think is where Bezos goes. It's a cost. So don't use strategy to make it cost more. Use strategy to get rid of the cost, which I think is where Amazon has done really well. The other thing that they turned on the head of traditional rules, customers are all equal is the traditional rule. And Jeff Bezos says, no, customers are not all equal. And so if you get into Pareto and the 80-20 rule, and definitely in my business, this is absolutely true. All customers are not equal. You have customers that supply great amounts of work and business, and they aren't always your biggest customers either. And you have customers that supply great amounts of profit, and those aren't always your biggest customers either. So not all are created equal. You need to manage the supply chain and the logistics for cost, not strategic and not for every customer, but for cost. And this is where things like Amazon Prime come in. Those people are willing to pay more. That helps you manage your cost. So those are the people that you target and try and make happy. And then you optimize your inventory and push as much off as possible. Amazon does not have warehouses full of this stuff. They have fulfillment centers that get shipments in and out, and they move inventory in and out. They buy inventory as they need it. They sell it as they can. That's the true beauty of some of what goes on in the Amazon supply chain. So the role of supply chain, quick and efficient supply, and this is more in a traditional sense. Sophisticated information technology, extensive network warehousing, multi-tier inventory management, excellent transportation. 82% of Amazon sales are comprised of third-party vendors. That's pretty amazing if you think about it. So 82% of their revenues, or at least their sales, are coming from somebody else. So they're only making 18% of their sales. And we'll get into that. That's probably from their now facilities, which they've agreed to have some amount of inventory on hand for immediate sales, but then those immediate sales back to customers, those immediate sales are at a greater price in the now category than the normal folks. So they use Six Sigma process and data-driven decisions, different warehouses and different delivery options. they're heavily dependent on outsourcing. Talk about an outsourcing nightmare. If it ever got away from them, this would be the company that would potentially have large issues with that. They're implementing more and more a push and pull strategy. There's a slide on that in a little bit that we'll get into a little more. They have 70 fulfillment centers, excuse me, and greater than 90,000 full-time employees. They use Kiva systems, which is advanced staging and robotics, and then they limit their supply chain costs through these mechanisms. So here starts to get into locations of warehouses and fulfillment centers, and you can see that they've started to make differentiations between now facilities and one-day facilities. And so a one-day facility is really a sorting center. So things come in, things go out. They don't really stay there. Amazon fulfillment centers are they deal in some warehousing and inventory in and out, but then their now facilities are back to having products there waiting and ready. And so I want you to try and remember some of this map for when we get to the air supply portion of this talk, because I think it's amazing that this map sticks so much to the coast and the middle industrial Midwest. But you'll notice something really similar when we get to airports and different parts like that Amazon has purchased. So the Amazon supply chain simplified, there's different supply chains for different fulfillment strategies. So in the standard shipping, an order comes in, a faraway fulfillment center, then they use USPS, who they have negotiated rates with, who also the president is sort of mad about that they have better rates, but meanwhile they are fulfilling like 22% of the U.S. postal system's supply, and then your package gets to you. That's standard shipping. Same day, so you can pay more to get a same day strategy. So you send your order. Same day is only available in certain places. So there's a nearby fulfillment center. It goes to a sortation center, and a sortation center is how to move packages, really. It gets on a U.S. Postal Service truck that day and it gets to you. Now Prime now we're really into the interesting stuff, because they are almost going to a brick and mortar type fashion here, in that the order comes in, there's a city storefront store that has your package, and they're guaranteed to have a certain amount of supply at those facilities. And now we go to a crowdsourced delivery option. So this could be Uber now, it could be any one of the ride shares, it could be actually a courier service in a certain city that there are negotiated rates with. It could be an Amazon employee, depending on. That one's pretty unusual, but this gets into Amazon wants to be asset light. And by having crowdsourced delivery, by using the U.S. Postal Service, you're staying asset light, and you're using the 3PL strategy of logistics to get your materials into other people's hands while you collect the revenue. All right, now we get into the interesting stuff. So Amazon has gotten a lot of attention because in 2013, Jeff Bezos said that he bought this airport in Pennsylvania and upstate New York because he was gonna fly packages to people. And I know this is hard to believe, but that was a hard concept for people to buy in 2013, which doesn't seem that long ago, but it is. And so in 2013, when he was going to do this, people thought he was crazy. I think today, the vast majority of us would be like, duh, like how else would you get a package there at some point? So he has since sold the upstate New York facility, White Sands. This gets interesting because there's going to be a play with Amazon and their ability to drone fly from different places based on what the aviation community will let them do. I think it's probably a little bit of a miscalculation on Amazon's part that it would just be easy to fly drones from wherever to wherever. I think the FAA is going to have some back and forth with that. Meanwhile, it's not only drone technology too. Amazon's growing an air network. Forget just drones. They have bought 120 acres by the Cincinnati, North Kentucky airport. They are going to basically put in their own backbone of air delivery for freight removal. And they partnered, of course they have, because they don't want to own this, but they want it for their use. So they partnered with Atlas, who Atlas owns a few airports. These are not commercial airports. I want to caution everybody. The only one that's a commercial airport is 120 acres by Cincinnati. Everything else is, I don't want to say a back swamp airport, but it's a public airport that has long runways, that was up for sale, that Amazon bought. And so there is one in North Texas, one by the Mexico border. We can only assume that there might be a play with Mexico there, because largely there isn't a lot of people out in that area, but there is certainly a lot of product moving across the U.S.-Mexico border. Outside of Phoenix, Southern California, Northern California, there's there's an airport just outside of Connecticut. We can assume that that's for the Northeast corridor. And then there's one just inside of Indiana, which we can assume will service the upper Midwest. So my question, I guess, is this the start of an air backbone? They have not announced those plans, but they have certainly moved towards that way. Well, they have their own 3PL operating there. And so this is for things like inventory management, for delivery. They bought in Whole Foods. And so if the FAA would ever tell them that they needed to take off from an airport for these drone deliveries, they actually probably have the ability to do that, which is pretty interesting if you get right down to it. They own 9 true airport properties. They own 120 acres at the Cincinnati airport. And so my question, and I think it's pretty already answered, is this the start of a backbone for air logistics and drone deliveries? And I'm sure the answer there is most definitely. So reasons that they do this, back to the Whole Foods and grocery, I think that's a huge market for them that they don't even know how to tap into yet. Same day delivery into those, and inventory management would be huge. Providing groceries in the Northeast area corridor, I think, is probably a big bastion of availability. Again, 9 true airports, and we get back to, are they setting up a backbone for new 3PL? And you know, the funny part maybe about this a little bit is this back to a traditional hub and spoke network? Because if you go back to that map, man, it looks like a hub and spoke network. We'll see if they redevelop that as they go. You know, that asset light thing also comes back into play there. They've worked really hard to keep assets out. How many assets will they add? Or maybe they will spin that off. So also want to talk a little bit about their global supply network. This launched in 2006. They have S3, which is a file storage service. And so these are all under the Amazon Web Services um, network. And they have EC2, which is a computer capacity. And so basically, these are examples of Amazon monetizing the know-how and scalability and reliability on the e-commerce side of things that they've used. So they developed all this software to manage these things, and so now they're starting to use that to go out and look at different avenues for development of revenue. You also have their computerized supply chain. Amazon supply chain and logistics management. I'm not sure, this is proprietary software. They have not yet to really monetize this yet, but surely they will look at that as they move forward. So looking at it as a pure player, Amazon ends up leveraging digital advantage to optimize its supply chain. So you have customers over on the one side, and they are loyal to Amazon.com, and it's a lot of times the cheapest origin, and it's real time. It's a beautiful part of it, right? They figured out how to target and who to target. It'll re-optimize based on other customers' orders, which means that they get more and more better selection as they go through. But with that, then the customer gets the advantage of the Amazon warehouse. They're fast moving and fulfillment centers. They have some hard to find items, and they only keep small quantities of those. And when they're out, they don't show you those quantities. Back to optimizing it for those customers. If they're out of things, they don't show them. When they have them, they show them. Or when they can get them quickly, they show them. That's probably the more amazing part, is that they can have it to where they know if they can get it quickly. They have easily movable at an Amazon warehouse. There's easily movable items, and they store those in highly automatic facilities so they can get them in and out. And they use extensive use of tracking. And then they also have third-party sellers that do drop shipping where Amazon can't provide it. The third party immediately steps in seamlessly. It looks like it's coming from Amazon. People don't even know the difference for the most part. And they don't even think about the difference. Is maybe more important, that it's coming from a complete stranger that has very little to do with Amazon, but people accept it as Amazon. It's an amazing part about their supply chain. Some initiatives going on at Amazon today. Customer-centric innovations. This is e-commerce made easy. I think they probably figured out that they have a selective audience that is not driven by money. And so the question comes back to, how can you make more money on somebody that's not driven by money? And that's, give them better options to buy, give them more options to buy, give them better stock management. Ultimately, you'll sell more. So with the better stock management, the best-selling products are kept in stock by Amazon. Never run out of your bestseller, in other words. Long tail items are outsourced, meaning you can blame it on somebody else a little bit. I mean, that sounds terrible, but it's somewhat true. If it's going to be something that's going to take a while, they'll blame it on the third-party distributor. If it's something they can get quick, even if it's from a third-party distributor, then they'll take credit for it. So smart management of the name also, I think. Amazon divides its segments and follows a price differentiation strategy. So one-day delivery, those people are their bread and butter, right? They will order things. Money's not an object to get them quick. They offer free Super Saver delivery. These are for the cheapos that maybe Amazon doesn't target as much, but they'll happily take their 20% of the money in the 80-20 rule. First class delivery, definitely is all right, but more people sign up for the Prime delivery in the 2-day option, even better. They get $100. They paid for their loyalty, and then they're loyal. So this is one of the other strategic initiatives, is a push-pull strategy. So multi-tier inventory system, aggregation in the distribution centers and partner distribution centers, and network of third-party sellers. So the reason they call it push-pull is you push the product out until you don't have it, then you start pulling it from other places to get it. When the shipment orders are done in a push-pull strategy, again, if you can make it look seamless, it's a great strategy, and they sort of coined this concept. It really helps with out-of-stock materials. The locker service, they also have in some of the bigger cities. I haven't used this. They don't offer it in Houston, but there are busy big cities where they have lockers that they'll leave products in for folks to pick up, so they can get it on their way home. One of their strategic initiatives is building warehouses close to city centers for same-day delivery. Again, there's one of these being built in Houston. When they get that built, there's one in Dallas now. When they get that built, it will help seamlessly identify those same-day delivery people that they can make more money off of. Here's a bit of a schematic with it. So you procure the goods, they go to a fulfillment center, you go to a sortation center, and then you go to a Prime Now warehouse, depending. The fulfillment centers, you get 2 to 3 day delivery. They're slower, they're bigger, they have more products. The sortation centers, same day, 1 to 2 hour delivery. They're smaller, they have less products. And then the Prime Now warehouses, those are 1 to 2 hour deliveries, and they're coming immediately when you order them. And so one of the things, there are products that fit into that Prime Now, but man, if you think about it, the Whole Foods buy looks fantastic with those Prime Now fulfillment warehouses. So this is push-pull, and if they can't fulfill it, they're bringing in a third-party vendor to fit into one of those 3 places, and that's what they're offering the customer when they get on Amazon.com. So achievements, number 1 in the Gartner list is supply chain. Rapid expansion of Prime, along with bold initiatives, allow the retailer to offer more. Drones for inventory management. So they're also using drones inside of warehouses to move products around and get them out. Whole Foods and Dash, this is their new business. A lot of availability for drone deliveries, a lot of availability for same-day deliveries in big cities. Ultimately, they're one of the best booksellers, which is largely gone by the wayside, I feel like, when Kindle came out, but they still consider those books. You have the Dash button, you have Prime delivery options, you have a virtual assistant if you want that can go through Prime. The 7 supply chain lessons from Amazon are: put yourself in your customer's shoes. You want it easy, you want it quick. Don't be distracted by competition. Everybody does it different. If you got the better way, you should keep doing it your way. Keep your eye on the ball. Go the extra mile. Plant seeds and watch them grow. I think this is where the air network and the logistics is starting at the moment. Learn to improvise, meaning if it's broke, fix it, change it, do it different. Build the dream team. Sure, whatever. I mean, everybody can say you have to have the best people. So how supply chain management contributes to the success and the failure of the organization. They really broke the rules to supply chain. The inventory side, they don't have tons of inventory, at least for as much as they sell. Not all customers are created equal. The drones, the same-day delivery, people said this stuff can't be done. Much less, it definitely can't be done if you don't have a brick and mortar store. So they knew they were different, and they embraced it and went with it. Amazon leads the pack with its innovative approach to online retailing, no doubt, and a lot of that is based on the supply chain and the logistics side. Limitless inventory. In 15 years, Amazon went from one category, books, to 16 main categories. They also, remember, don't have a lot of inventory and pull from third-party vendors whenever they need, and that means that they have unlimited inventory for the most part on a lot of items. They're using the push-pull strategy in an initiative, getting better at that through their now side, through their prime, and through their warehousing and sortation centers. And then they're building drone supply chain, and they're building aviation backbone for different 3PL and logistics. Is that a game changer? Is that seeds? We'll have to wait and see. But I got a kick out of it. This is actually an Abraham Lincoln quote, by the way, but Jeff Bezos used it when they bought the 120 acres in Cincinnati, North Kentucky. And it basically said, he said, the best way to predict your future is to create it. And I think this gets into how is Amazon going to continue their success in being on top? Well, the answer is they're going to figure out a different way to do things. And that's the air backbone, that's the now centers, that's the same day, that's Whole Foods, that's many of the things that they're trying to figure out how to improve logistics and supply chain for. Some references, I'm sure the professor will love to review those, and appreciate your time. Sorry I went a little long. Amazon, interesting company. Jeff Bezos, electrifying character. If nothing else, somebody should give the guy a lot of credit for having an idea and executing it, because they have grown leaps and bounds over the years. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.